Today's webinar will be led by Rick Lind, who is a Senior Solutions Consultant here at SAP SuccessFactors. Rick, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Jesse, and thank you everybody for your time. Again, I'm Rick Lind. I'm one of the Solutions Consultants here at SAP SuccessFactors, and I'm excited to show you a high-level overview of our compensation solution. I have a few slides that I just want to jump into before we get into the live demonstration, and we'll make sure that we reserve some time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. Okay, so let's dive into these slides here. So research shows that organizations with strategic compensation improves business results. It's no secret that the key to retaining the best and brightest employees is recognizing and compensating top performers. Research shows that retention can be improved by pay for performance by up to 27%. And research also shows that organizations that employ strategic compensation practices see 2 times year-over-year revenue improvements per full-time employee. Companies that distribute rewards to key employee segments such as high performers, critical skill, talent, and high potentials can have up to 15 to 20% greater performance when measured by revenue and profit growth. And also, having rewards and recognition programs in place are critical to keeping employees engaged and productive. In organizations where recognition does occur, employee engagement is 14% better than in those where recognition does not occur. However, today the difficulties of creating competitive compensation programs with limited budgets, changing market conditions, and increased employee expectations are greater than ever, and many compensation programs are not achieving the desired results. With over half of organizations unable to effectively differentiate the pay of their top performers, an organization's ability to use compensation as a strategic lever to attract, motivate, and retain talent becomes stifled. In fact, one study found that only 26% of employees were providing employers an acceptable return on their annual compensation. After accounting for employee separations and disengagement levels, at best, the companies surveyed only saw a 50% return on their total compensation investments. So what are the causes of ineffective compensation management? Many solutions are not automated or integrated, and compensation is not well communicated. The most important benefit of strategic compensation management is aligning the workforce to business strategy and compensating the workforce on goal achievement. However, only 40% of organizations have compensation programs aligned with this business strategy. Manual approaches to compensation planning and management inhibit process efficiency and scalability. Using spreadsheets for compensation management impacts productivity negatively and increases financial and organizational risk. For example, 38% of companies have found errors in payments to employees in the past 18 months, but fewer than 1/4 of those companies actually perform audits to determine where there are errors in calculations in spreadsheets. All too often, employees perceive compensation policies, plans, and actions as a, quote, black box. They don't understand the value of their compensation. Not only do they mistrust the system, lack of understanding leads inaccurate expectations and disappointment when pay decisions are made. As a result, the compensation plan is unable to realize its intent to motivate employees and improve the ROI on what is probably the organization's single largest cost. So, how can you ensure your compensation programs are delivering the intended message and rewarding the right behaviors? At SAP, we believe that compensation is a strategic tool for shaping employee behavior and influencing organizational performance. Other compensation solutions focus on automation, things like streamlining and simplifying the compensation process, but this only increases the speed and efficiency of the current process. Automation alone does not enable strategic compensation processes. So how do we enable you to take a more strategic approach to compensation? Well, at SAP, we provide a unique set of capabilities that help you model and manage competitive compensation programs, and while at the same time motivating your workforce. In doing this, we help you more effectively attract and retain top talent by keeping your employees engaged and productive while improving business performance. We cover 3 core components of compensation within the SAP SuccessFactors compensation solution. Base salary and variable pay, which includes short-term incentives and long-term incentives. Base compensation is about things like merit increases, market adjustments, lump sums, and promotion planning. The compensation worksheet enables managers to plan compensation that is up to the decision of the line managers. We also have team calibration tying compensation to performance. For short-term incentives, we support incentive pay tied to individual, team, and company goal achievement. The solution also supports the ability to prorate bonus assignments for individuals changing bonus plans or jobs during the year. We also offer forecasting and accrual support tools for incentive bonus planning. And lastly, for long-term incentives, we have the ability to make recommendations around cash, stock, and equity, to assign participation rate by job level, and to plan in units or value. So let's take a look. So I'm logged in to SuccessFactors as Jeff, so he's one of our managers. This is his home page. What's nice about this is, especially for the managers, the design of the portal that they access within the SuccessFactor, whether it's the talent components or the core HR components of Employee Central, everything's all organized on a single dashboard view. He immediately knows what to-dos he has to do right up at the top of the page here. And one of those actions is to plan for his compensation. So let's use the assumption that this is the annual compensation planning for we're going to go through a worksheet that has all 3 components of the merit increases plus the short and long-term incentive plans. So that task has been pushed out to Jeff as the manager. So right from his home page, he can go right into that worksheet, which is going to show him a listing of his direct reports that he personally, as their manager, is going to plan for their 3 components of the compensation. But after we go through his worksheet, he's also a manager of managers. So we'll see the review and approval process and how he can move the workflow along as far as people that he needs to approve their compensation worksheets. So this is an extremely configurable solution. So everything that I'm showing you here in the demo, pretty much everything is we'll call turned on. But keep in mind that whether your company's compensation planning involves just portions of this, or being able to change any of the filtering or the display columns that are on the page, I mean, all of this is done not only from an administrator's level as far as what components you want everybody to see, but also at the individual planner's point of view, or what I like to call the personalization capabilities of SuccessFactors here. So, Jeff could see something completely different than what a different manager in a different department or location sees. Okay, and there's many ways to use the tool where you can effectively plan for the compensation either as a whole, sort of in this I'll call it like an Excel design, where it's showing all of his employees and direct reports information over here, starting on the left, and then he can use scroll tools to go down across. Actually, maybe make this a little bit bigger here. To see are there additional components around the merit increases, any market adjustments, or maybe there's a regulatory country-specific adjustment that needs to automatically be added to this employee's increases, lump sums, promotions. I mean, it all can be covered through here with a ton of information carrying from their current state, what their current positioning is, prorating the positions that they're in. The pay for performance culture will tie directly to the performance ratings. So this is tying directly to the SuccessFactors performance and goals solution. This is their annual performance rating that is actually driving the guidelines for not only the merit increases, but also for their individual bonuses, if they have any business objectives that are tied to their individual performance, and we'll see that in a few minutes. right? But other things around, the currency, it's a global application, so we can manage currencies across the globe. The different pay grades, the salary survey information. So this actually is importing in some external salary survey data through our partnership with MarketPay. That's an option if you have your own salary survey information that can be imported as well. And then we actually start to get into the different components around based off of the performance ratings that the individual employees received for 2016, how is that driving the potentials for merit increases. So you can see there are different guidelines for different employees where somebody like Jada probably got an outstanding performance rating on a 5-point rating scale. She gets the potential highest amount versus somebody who maybe scored a little bit lower. They are not eligible perhaps for a merit increase based on that. And it's up to you, and the system is highly configurable to determine what latitude do you want the end user comp planners to have. You can see that it defaults for Jada here at a 4% merit increase, but we could change it to, she's the best performer in the group, we could maybe make it 6%. It all could be based off of, budget information that I'm currently tracking. So whether this information is coming in from your core, financials or HR system, and those budgets can be propagated down through the org structure of the company, each manager could see, all right, if we're auto-allocating the majority of the budget, but I still have some additional funds that I can individually give to higher performers versus lower performers, it's very easy to follow that structure through here. And there's different warnings that are in here. If we were to say, we wanted to go above the maximum guideline amount of 6% and actually give her an 8% merit increase, then I'm going to get one of these, we'll call it a soft stop errors that will say, okay, you can give her that 8% increase, but you're going to need to provide a comment as to why, because that's outside the guidelines. You can also have hard stops that doesn't allow the planner to submit the worksheet until that rule violation is completed. And a common one that I've seen is don't go over your budget or else that's a hard stop. But we'll drop her back down to the 4% here. So that applies to all these different components through here. And I can see, again, through the different ways of looking at the data up at the top, there's some inline analytics that you'll see through here. So being able to see the compensation against the performance distribution guidelines maybe the company, or if we are using the pay for performance matrix, how the performance ties up against their range penetration or their comp ratio. To somebody, if somebody's like approaching the maximum amount of their range, does this mean that that's going to stop them from getting an increase? Maybe we have to look at promoting them to the next grade. Making sure that the highest amount of merit increases are going to the employees that have the highest performance rating. So again, just a quick example of the different types of inline analytics that you can push out to the planners in real time and have these within the comp planning tool so that they can make informed decisions without having to go to the reports module or some external source to find this info. And you can also very easily take this to a more detailed level for each employee. If we were to drill into Jada herself and look at what we'll call her compensation profile, this will show everything that's tied to Jada, including all of her history, across the different comp components. So we can see historically what were the raises that she got both from, let's say, merit increases or bonuses, versus stock awards for maybe the long-term incentive plans. Right? And as we just start to scroll through here, you can see it's very, very user-friendly, especially for managers. Right? I mean, how often is somebody coming in here and planning for somebody's compensation? At best, it's probably once or twice a year, maybe. So we want to design, these pages and the process so that it's very, very simple for these casual users. So, okay, here's what her existing pay grade is. She actually was approaching the maximum on her range penetration. So in this particular case, we're promoting her into a new salary grade. So I can see those changes through here. And then what the recommendations are. So based off of her current position, her current pay information, the salary survey data that I have here from MarketPay, and then the same sort of data that we saw on the spreadsheet view, but more detailed specifically for this one employee. So here's the merit guidelines, any adjustments, I mentioned the country-specific adjustments. See how this is grayed out? I actually can't change this from the planner level because that's a, let's say she works in a particular area where there's a regulatory required increase. There's some countries that require that. But I could put in some lump sums. Here's the promotional increase, so that automatically populated when we moved her from one grade to the next. And then I can see the final salary information. And this is really just looking at it from the merit planning perspective. I can also look at other aspects of her compensation, like, okay, if she is going to be awarded any equity, so whether that's any stocks or options, or in this case some RSUs that have been granted to her, that also can be part of a budgeted amount of units or dollar values, in this case US dollars, that you can again propagate down through the org structures that the managers have. Okay, here's the sort of auto-allocated amounts based off of the performance ratings, and you can see since she got the highest rating of the 5-point rating scale, we're granting her the highest range possible for this particular case. And that also carries forward into her bonus. So the variable pay, which in this example here, she's part of an incentive plan that's prorated for the entire review period, but there's two components to it. There's a business payout, and then there's an individual achievement multiplier. And what's nice about this from the manager's standpoint is that, obviously to see the summary information that's here and how all the calculations are made, saying like, okay, the business performance went way above target, 126% of plan. Her individual achievement is this, and this actually is hyperlinked where I can drill right into her performance review form to actually see for her MBO objectives what was the specific goal achievement on those. Right, to see where we came across, in this case, even though it looks like she got a 63% on achievement, we're still going to give her quite a healthy individual performance multiplier for her bonus. But the range between 100 and 140, we're defaulting to 125, but as the manager, I have that latitude to make changes within my own profile, and that's managed by the role-based permissions of the SuccessFactors security modeling. But if we want to get into the detail of all of this, it's all here. So I mentioned those metrics from the overview presentation around how many companies that are using spreadsheets are missing all sorts of errors. Well, here's where all of that can be avoided. If we're importing in, let's say, business metrics, things like your company's customer satisfaction index or EBITDA or revenue numbers, and you can even get into the actual details of where these numbers come from and tying them to minimum threshold for an employee to receive a bonus based off of a revenue objective. What's the target? Is there a maximum or ceiling on the performance of this? How that's all weighted differently within one summing component of her annual bonus. All of the details that you're seeing here, lots of numbers, but the best part is that it's all calculated automatically so that the end user planner doesn't need to worry about trying to figure this out on spreadsheets. And it makes everybody's lives so much easier to know that based off of all of this information, it's all rolling up to the overall incentive payout amount, which again is the combination of the business and the individual performance. Okay. And I mentioned earlier in the overview around how we can handle complex calculations on employees that are part of multiple variable pay plans, multiple incentive plans, as well as prorating different plans. In fact, if we choose, I believe, Stephanie here, she was a member of 2 different plans because she changed positions halfway through the year. So she was part of, I believe, a planner incentive plan as more of like an individual contributor. So I'll go down to her variable pay metric. Right, so we'll see that the first organizational performance, she was part of the planner incentive plan from January to June of last year. So there was a certain target. It was weighted a particular way. It had these 3 goals, right? There was a certain payout amount. But then in July, she actually changed or was, let's say, promoted to the Management and Planning Incentive Plan, which has a different weighting associated with it. The goals are the same, but they're weighted differently, maybe because it's a different division within the company. So the payout amount would be different. So couple that and sum that up with her individual performance for the entire year, and that also changed because of the different plans that she was in. But again, I'm showing you a lot of the detail, but just rest assured that all of it automatically gets calculated through her compensation profile with the appropriate guidelines and recommendations. Okay. Now, when it's time to move forward with any reviews or approvals. Now, I mentioned that Jeff is a manager of managers, right? So he has his own direct reports that he sees through here. There's 8 people that are here. But when the time comes for the workflow to move to, let's say, a comp planner that's submitting it to their manager for an approval before it goes to the HR business partners and the comp administrators. And let's say we'll use this particular one for the review. From a reviewer standpoint, there might be dozens or hundreds or even thousands of potential employees that could be coming through the approval chain, right? That's not something that an approver would want to actually have to do, right? To look at every single employee's comp worksheet, right? To see, do I need to review all of this? In this particular case, let's say there's about a couple of dozen employees that are listed in Jeff's org structure through here. He doesn't want to have to look at all of these, but what he can very easily do is actually just through the filtering say, only show me the users where the recommendations were outside the guidelines. So when he applies that filter, it's only going to show, I believe, 3 of these employees where he'll know that there was a rule violation, one of those soft stops that we went through earlier to say, is there a particular reason why these people are, above their merit guidelines or somebody applied a higher, individual multiplier on their bonus. The original planner can be informed of any changes that the approver might do, or as part of how you actually define what that approval workflow is, you can very easily send any of these worksheets back to the planners with notes to say that you need to stay within your budget or whatever that is. So it's very simple to go through that particular process, again, for all parts of those components. Now, once everything is reviewed and submitted, then you can push off the changes, whether it's through the SuccessFactors Employee Central HR solution or if it's to the SAP HCM solution or another third-party HR system. The data that gets integrated in, that gets, whether it's the budget information for the increases, any of the changes will all neatly flow back to HR and payroll changes for the new year. Okay. As far as, we'll say, the off-cycle type of rewards and recognitions, I mentioned those metrics at the beginning of the presentation around having those rewards and recognition programs in place, and that it really is critical to keeping your employees productive and engaged in retaining the best employees. So within our solution, we have capabilities that allow not only the managers to provide these sort of spot bonus type of awards, but if your company has the culture of allowing the peer recognitions, that can really be a key factor in not only employee retainment but also in the engagement. And I mentioned that metric was the employee engagement was 14% better than in organizations that don't have any type of formal recognition program. What's great about this is that it's part of the same sort of dashboard within compensation. So outside of the annual planning period that we just saw, if we wanted to recognize somebody through here, whether it's a peer recognizing a peer through here, and as the manager, Jeff can actually see the number of awards that people have received throughout a particular period. And you can choose one or multiple people. You can see that there's a budget that's been assigned through here. But it's just a quick little wizard that He'll go through. You can categorize these. So rather than just saying like, oh, am I going to give this person a $50 Starbucks card for helping me on a project? You can actually configure different award categories based off of, well, if you're really trying to recognize somebody based on their achievements, what did they actually do? And rather than worrying about the dollar amounts associated with those, it can walk the employee or the manager through these categories to say, were they a key member? Did they, go above and beyond? Was it just extra work that's part of their day-to-day? Or was it something that was so unbelievably significant that, in this case, we'll say that Jada here is a hero, right? You can put in some comments. This is actually locked into $100 US in this particular case, but the role-based permissions that I mentioned earlier can let certain users modify the award amounts. But you put in a nice message in here, and again, it can be part of their overall talent profile as far as these informal recognitions, and more formal with dollars. Okay. One last thing I wanted to show you from Jeff's perspective would be the compensation statements. I go to his people profile. So think of this as his complete HR and talent profile. So everything that is Jeff's world within SAP SuccessFactors is all organized within this simple to use and view people profile. These different categories that are up through here, so I can see information around his personal background, his payroll benefits information, his employment information, talent profile, and then the comp statement. So think of this as sort of an employee self-service capability. Right? If we select the comp statements and go down to that particular section. For the demo here, I have a couple of different templates that are configured. One of the templates is tied directly to just his specific compensation changes for a particular year. So if we pull up one of these statements, you can see that it shows a nice little template, and this can be branded with your company's logo and just whatever the text that you would want through the letters can be configured very easily. But it will include any aspect of the talent platform. So whether it's performance data, this was your performance review. These were the achievements for the business goals that we had for this year, in addition to your own, MBO goals and objectives, those metrics. And again, any of the stuff that you saw on the actual comp worksheet can be included in the compensation statements that are pushed out to the employees. There's also a combined statement if you want to use more of, we'll call it a total reward statement, where it might be a combination of the talent data, so the compensation planning changes that we just went through, but maybe some additional core benefits info, like all your 401k data, or here's the benefits information that the company provides to you to generate something that looks like this total reward statement. So that data can be imported in, and you can, again, configure templates very easily to push out to the employees at that time. Okay. Let's also look at, I showed you a couple of analytics from the perspective of the comp planner on the worksheet. Everything that you're seeing here today, and this goes across the entire SuccessFactors platform, there are a number of standard and ad hoc reports and graphical dashboards that go across all these different talent solutions, specifically around compensation. This is just going to pull up some examples. The permissioning of these around the security, Jeff's only seeing the employees within his org structure. So you can configure the security model to only allow the end users, those comp planner manager users, to only see the data that's related to their own departments or locations or divisions, whatever that is. But for higher level users, whether it's the HR business partners or the comp administrators or executives that you might roll these reports up to, all of that carries forward within the analytics and these dashboards. What's nice about these graphical dashboards is that you can drill into the details of them. This is just a simple salary, I believe, frequency report, so telling us who's annual, who's semi-monthly, who's biweekly, hourly, that sort of thing within his group. So pretty simple, but you can see with just a couple of clicks he can drill into the graphical output of the report and get more of an Excel sort of view down below. And you can easily export these reports to CSV or formatted Excel through here. We can change any of the filtering options as well. So if it's a case of somebody who maybe can go across multiple divisions or locations, we could say, all right, show me the entire division or only show me one department within the division or this particular location. So we're looking at it from this team view. He's seeing his direct reports, but any levels below those direct reports, but in Jeff's case here, he can't see levels above. The division, he can only see corporate services and manufacturing, but there's many other divisions that are through here. But again, this security model around the data itself carries across the entire SuccessFactors platform, and that would include any of the comp data. And if you are implementing or you use any of the other SuccessFactor talent or HR components, you can create or use, and there's even standard reports around this, where there are multiple domain report templates that will combine multiple aspects of the talent data. So, performance data with the compensation data. Show me the highest, performance ratings that get the highest, merit increases. Or are these people that we're promoting further on down the line, which would include any career development or succession planning data. Okay, so all of that information is readily available to the end users, and you're seeing it from this sort of dashboard view under the analytics portal, but any of these tiles can be pushed off to a user's homepage. So right when Jeff actually logged in, he had a dashboard view that had a couple of graphical analytics. So the very first thing that you could configure through here is to actually push compensated and talent-related data to the end user's homepage, which is especially good for more of the senior leaders, right? So they don't have to go to the compensation tool or even to the analytics tool. You can push the appropriate reports to them. Okay, so last thing I wanted to show you is I'm going to log in as one of the comp administrators and just show you a little bit around the configuration capabilities of the solution. What's nice about the admin tools is that everything can be done directly through the tool. So you can abandon, for those who are on the call that use a lot of spreadsheets, right? After a successful implementation, every one of our customers just throws away the spreadsheets. I mean, you don't necessarily have to do it for everything, but anything that you can do on the spreadsheet, you can configure workflow through here. This is, in my opinion, it's the most flexible solution in the entire platform. The actual plans themselves, we go to, let's see, we'll do the 2015 plan. So this was the worksheet that Jeff was working on earlier. This one's actually already been completed, but if we go to the setup, you have total control over the design of the worksheet, the details of the plan, things like the budget, the guidelines, the formulas, and you can do this all through the admin tools. So just even, things like designing the columns. What do you want them to look like? It has the reason why I'm showing you this also is because you don't have to be technical to do this. Anybody who's an administrator on the phone, you can do this, right? Configuring the form fields. If you recall, remember the spreadsheet view that Jeff was looking at where he saw the, okay, here's the information about the employee their background info, then the market pay data, then we get into the merit guidelines, right? You can choose exactly how you want to configure these. You can change the order of the columns. Is this a read-only field? Is it a percent field? Do we want to show both the percentage for the increases on the merit or the amounts, right? Who has permission to view or edit the role? So this is, we'll call it a standard column. And it's very easy to add your additional standard columns directly through the tool. You can see that a lot of them are added in here by default. But even if by some chance there's a custom column that you need to create that's outside the standard column list here, you can do that as well. So we could say, let's create a custom column. Where do we want that to be? Is it going to be part of, let's say, the final salary section, right? What type of field is it going to be? Is it a read-only field? I'll say yes. What's the formula? Let's see. We'll say that it's going to be, we'll do adjustment plus, we'll pick a different category. We'll make something really out there. Options. How about that? Extra plus options. So a couple clicks, I have a new column. It's in my worksheet. It's ready to go. Very simple. Okay. Total control over the design of the worksheets. The planning details, things like the budgets. Where do they come from? You saw those initial budgets through one of those inline analytics on the worksheet that Jeff had. Where did that budget actually come from? Well, in this case, by default, we're saying that for merits, the budget is 2% of the base salary of the employees within that group. Okay, and is that just for merit? Is it merit plus the lump sum category? Is there a budget for the adjustment category? Right? And then how do you want to warn people that potentially go over their allotted budget amount? Is it allowing them to proceed, or is it one of those hard stops? The eligibility guidelines. What are the rules that are associated with those? Maybe this is something where if employees that are hired after a particular date, we'll say comp eligibility hire date. Maybe if they're hired after July 1st of that particular planning year, maybe they're not eligible for compensation changes at all. Or maybe they are, but maybe they can only get merit, or excuse me, maybe they can get not a merit increase or a promotion, but maybe just adjustments or any particular lump sum, but not stock and not options. So these rules that are this one particular rule that you see here, you have total control over the framework around those eligibility rules, and you can assign different rules for different scenarios based off of those worksheets. The guidelines. So where did all the formulas come from? How do we know that when somebody gets, meets expectations on a 5-point performance rating scale, that they're going to get by default a 2% merit increase, let's say? And do these formulas tie in multiple aspects of their profile? In this particular case, we're seeing that we're combining the performance ratings with the employee's range penetration. So if somebody gets a rating of 1, which is a pretty bad rating, they're not getting anything. You see all the zeros over here, regardless of their range penetration. But as I start to scroll down through some of the better ratings, so let's say the meets expectations, somebody who's less than 25% of their range penetration but gets a meets expectations, the default merit increase in my demo world here is a 3% increase with a maximum of, or excuse me, a high guideline of 5, but a low of 3. This is interesting. A 50% increase is the maximum. That would be very exciting. But you can see as the range penetration increases, and we know that the person's approaching the top end of the scale for that grade, the numbers are going down. So somebody who could do pretty well, but if they're close to 100% on the range, the most they're going to be able to get would be 2, but the default is 1. Right? So that might be a case where the recommendation could be to promote the employee to the next grade. So all of these I could change within sort of this Excel view through here, and sort of right on the screen. But you can very easily export the template into a CSV file, make the changes offline, and then import them back in. That's a very popular option. So I would say that's still one of the little aspects of Excel that I think a lot of customers still like to use. And then the rating sources. So where's it coming from? In this case, we're using the annual performance form within SuccessFactors. So in this case, the 2015 performance review, those overall ratings of all the employees is what drove the guidelines. But we have many customers that use different scenarios using different rating sources. Maybe it's a 360 score, or maybe it's the mid-year review, or a lot of customers use this as for quarterly bonuses and the incentive plans, right? If we're looking at goals that they worked on for Q1 of 2017, and that's going to drive this part of their bonus that's paid out, at the end of the quarter. I mean, the possibilities are endless on how you can configure this, and it's very simple. Once you have all the configurations ready, it's easy to launch the worksheets right through here. So you can see we're setting dates, who's the head of the comp planning. This is very similar to how you would launch performance forms for those on the phone that are familiar with the SuccessFactors performance route maps. You can update the worksheets, you can add people, move them, delete them, you can override things. So I'm sure there's probably going to be a question around, what about exceptions? You have control over making changes as the admin. Okay, there's a guideline, the manager couldn't go above, but there were discussions that this particular person actually does need an increase or stock options that they weren't technically eligible for. You can come in here and make those changes as exceptions. And then completing the cycle is where we would publish the data back to the people profiles that I showed you, whether that's tied into using SuccessFactors Employee Central HR system, or if it's SAP HCM or another third party. All of that is part of the bidirectional feeds of importing and exporting the data, and then managing the reward statements and the templates through here. Okay, I'm looking at the clock, and we have about 13 minutes remaining. Jesse, I think we're going to conclude the demonstration here and go back to the slides and see if we have any questions.
Wonderful, Rick. Fantastic demo. And yes, we have quite the queue locked and loaded here, so we will make use of our 12 minutes wisely. Okay, our first question in the queue for you. Is this a global application? Do you handle multiple currencies and languages?
Yes. So the whole SuccessFactors platform is a global application. It's been implemented in, I want to say, close to 200 countries. It's configured in 38 different languages. And for the demo example, you saw mainly a US dollars example, but we can handle any international currency, whether that's from the planner's functional currency as they're planning their team's compensation, as well as doing any conversions to employees' local currencies and having multiple currencies on a single worksheet. So we can fully support that.
Excellent. Do you do compensation statements and total reward statements?
Yes. So back in the demo, we saw the compensation statement for Jeff as the employee, where he saw a combination of his merit and his incentive plan with his performance data as sort of an individual rewards, or I'll call it individual compensation statement for that period. And that total reward statement that I showed you actually combined both the compensation increases that he would have, as well as other company-related benefits, whether it was, this is how much the company provides for your health and welfare, here's your 401k balance, other benefits information, commuter benefits, whatever that is. All that data can be imported into his profile and then included as part of a total reward statement.
Great. For some countries, compensation also includes allowances. Can these be included on the planning page?
They can, yes. That's a great point. So when you saw that there was one column for country-specific adjustments, I actually had that permission so that the manager couldn't make any changes to those. So for whatever the scenario is for any country that does provide specific increases in any different types of compensation, that can be included into the worksheet, so yes.
Excellent. For rewards and recognition, is it possible to send the data once approved to payroll automatically?
Yes, great question. So at the conclusion of the entire process, and that was it's actually a timely question, that was the last screen that I showed you there, where if we're publishing the data at the conclusion of the whole process, if it's an SAP to SAP solution, or within the SAP SuccessFactors framework, it's all in real time. It's all automatic. We do have the capabilities to do bidirectional feeds of the data to export any changes to a payroll system, and that would include any payroll system out there. So if you use a non-SAP solution, we can still do real-time updates, or typically it's a batch integration.
Great. All right, next question. Where would you capture long-term incentive plans or function-specific awards that have multiple payouts within a year? Will it be under Reward and Recognition tab? This person is trying to see how complex that they can make a program.
Right. So where would you capture long-term incentive plans or other function-specific awards that have multiple payouts within the year? So you can, you could use the Reward and Recognition if you wanted. I would say that would be more of a sort of an manager discretion or employee discretion method of doing so. If you want workflow around that where there's a budget that's assigned, it ties to performance metrics, maybe revenue objectives, and if it's done on a quarterly basis, you absolutely can create quarterly incentive plan worksheets that are just for that particular period, whether it's quarterly, biannually or annually, and you could. That's probably what I would recommend, the way of doing that, because it gives you more aspect to, or more latitude around the complexity of your program. I will, since this question was sort of asked, I'll make a disclosure that the SuccessFactors compensation planning tool is not a sales commission incentive tool. So even though that we can handle long and short-term incentive plans through here, the complexities around typical salesperson-based commission plans is not supported within this tool. SAP does provide those solutions and functionality around that, but that would not apply through here.
Wonderful. All right. Instead of just market pay, can you use an aggregate of multiple surveys?
An aggregate of multiple surveys. Well, you can. I believe the way that the templates can be configured is that there are specific fields that will tie back to a specific value. I do not believe that it will auto-calculate multiple external survey data into a single field, but if you do that externally, that could be imported in. Yeah, I'd say the other option would just be you would have multiple columns for multiple surveys.
Very good. All right. I have a question about these screens. Can they be customized in the Admin Center, or is this done only in provisioning? For example, in formatting, can you add a column?
Yeah, everything that I showed you was through the admin tools. So provisioning is not needed to do any of these changes.
Excellent. All right. Can you create a rating in the actual form, rather importing or linking to a form? And can you rate someone on multiple items?
You can do that. So you can make those fields read-write where I know a lot of customers don't have a separate sort of process where they're importing performance ratings into a comp worksheet. So you can open that up to allow the manager to choose a rating that then can drive the guidelines. So yes.
At some time, can you discuss, like for now, the salary surveys and how they get loaded via market pay?
So that's just a part of our integration toolkit. Within the admin tools, there's an area to import external data, whether it would be salary survey data from MarketPay or if it's company-related data. If it's somebody like MarketPay, one of our, call them preferred vendors, there's existing templates to tie directly to their salary survey structure. So there's really not a lot of legwork that an admin has to do. But this would be something that would be scoped out more appropriately on through implementation planning analysis, and that would be a typical part of the implementation methodology.
All right. This person has deployed compensation, variable pay, and Employee Central. Do you have a way to publish promotion data from compensation to Employee Central? Right now they have to do this manually.
Yes, you can. So if you promote the people within the worksheets, that information can be published in Employee Central and actually change their positions, their structure, and their level.
All right. The reports you showed, are they from the advocacy reports or are they created by Report Designer?
So there are a baseline number of standard reports that are provided. The online report designer is really the hub of all of the reporting data. So any of the ad hoc fields, whether they're the standard columns or custom columns that you would add to your worksheets and the templates, all of those would be available in the online report designer for manipulation. And you can create, I'll call them the standard sort of Excel-looking outputs, you know, whether it's Excel, CSV, PDF. But you also can use the graphical report wizard to create those graphical-looking tiles and dashboards that I showed you.
All right. Okay, what is range penetration? Is it a compensation ratio?
The range penetration would be the percentage that the employee, based on their current, we'll call it salary information, is within the range of that particular salary grade. So if somebody is an individual contributor, and let's say that they're an engineer, and they're at grade 5, and the salary range is between 50 and 75,000 US dollars, right? If they're at 75,000, they're at 100% of the range penetration, and so that's what that particular metric will show. And typically, companies would want to make sure that people are not approaching the high end of the range when it comes to planning for compensation, to know that if that's the particular case, then that might be a scenario where we want to promote them to the next range.
Excellent. All right, we've got 2 minutes left. We'll go over if we need to, but maybe we can do lightning round here. Okay. All right, Rick, here we go. Do you have a way to update salary step or range amounts?
Yep, that's just part of the core employee data that would be imported in, and the permissioning would grant or revoke the user's access to make changes to that.
Can we implement different planning cycles with the same planning form?
Yes, you can. So you have control over the worksheets, the cycle, the review periods, if it's once a year or several times a year, as an example.
All right. Once a process has started, for example, bonus planning, can employees be added or removed? Can bonus targets or other employee data be changed and updated within the planning tool?
You can. So You saw when I was managing the worksheets at the end as the admin, I could have updated the membership of the group of employees that are part of those templates. You can add, remove, delete. Again, there's a ton of exceptions that I know that are out there, and the SuccessFactor tool supports all of those exceptions.
Great. All right. Can you have different range penetration percentages for different grades, which would generate different percentages for grades? Oh, I'm not sure if I read that right. Can you have different range penetration percentages for different grades, which would generate different percentages for different grades?
Well, if I understand this correctly, the range penetration that you see is the employee's specific penetration within that grade. So it would change based off of what their current and potential future compensation is, but the typical range is 0 to 100. So as that example that I said about the engineer, if he's at if he's in the mid-range, he's at 50% of range penetration versus if he's maxed out, he's at 100%.
All right, and we're going to hit our last question here. Is there a workflow for merit approvals, and is it auditable?
It is, yep. So when I showed earlier the review and approve section for Jeff, he was looking at, there were like 24 different employees within his org structure, and they all had merit increases, and there were specific employees that might have had a rule violation that he could review, make changes, send it back to the original approver, or make changes and then move it on to the next approver. And those approval paths are completely configurable by any worksheet that you have.
Thanks so much for all those great answers, Rick. A big thank you to everyone for joining us today. A giant thanks to you, Rick Lind. Now, our audience, we thank you for your time and these great questions. Just a reminder that today's webinar has been recorded.